Now, what does that mean? I mean, it's the first time I've heard somebody say that, because I'm always telling people in all my sermons, the dollar is going to be worth toilet paper. Now, did you know it already is? It's already worthless. There is nothing to back it up. The only reason it still has some value is because we Americans believe it has value. But that can't last forever. At the rate of $2 billion a day, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, some of you, over the period of many years, have deposited this in the bank for retirement. And when you go to withdraw it, you get this. You put it in when it still had this. And over many years. But it's now worth this. And in fact, daily, every time the government prints $2 billion, the aggregate wealth of North America is decreased by $2 billion. It's not free. It's like a secret tax. And your money can buy less and less and less. And suddenly those many years of retirement and those many pieces of paper you put in the government, you're going to get this much back if you get it today. But if you wait a little longer, you'll get this much back. Because if you have toilet paper in the bank, you can't buy food with it. Now, are you understanding a little bit? Every time they print money, it's like an invisible tax. It just decreases the size of the value of your money, even though when you put it in there, it had value. Now, those are just the basic principles of economy I just shared with you. The reality, the true reality of the situation is today that nobody really knows how low it really is. Only pennies on the dollar is it worth today. Now, what can cause it to collapse? What can cause a national panic?
Well, just now they said that seismologists in the West are talking about a possible 9.0 earthquake somewhere between Anchorage, Alaska, and Mexico. If that was to happen in the West, that would be something that could precipitate it.
Yeah, natural disasters only complicate the issue. But if we put out natural disasters for a minute and say, what would humanly cause a national collapse? What if you go to the bank, and the bank says to you, we don't have any money, so you can't withdraw everything you have. You say, what? Excuse me, I have $34,000 in this bank that I've saved here during the last many years that I've worked at Manchester Memorial Hospital. What do you mean I can't take it out? No, we're only allowing everybody a maximum of $100 or $300 to take out. Are you saying that if I want my money today, you won't give it to me? That's what we're saying. Then you call your neighbors. Have you heard? The bank doesn't have enough money. What? I'm running to get my $100 now. I better get at least my $300. Everybody runs on the bank. What happens? The bank locks the door. And then they go to the other bank in town in London. That door's locked too. And so you go to the big bank. You say, just give me a check. The big banks are closed. Just like that, if they run out of cash in any way, it's so fragile. Why do you think the banks just borrowed $80 billion from the Federal Reserve to keep the banks in cash just a couple weeks ago? Why? Because so many people have foreclosed on their homes that the banks don't have cash anymore. And if in any way they had a lack of cash, if you go to the bank with your paycheck and cash it and they say, I'm sorry, we can't do it, wouldn't you panic? Would you tell anybody about it? Man, there's nothing like texting all your friends. Bank just closed, no more money. You want to start a panic? It only takes, when you get a balloon and you put air into it and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, mostly balloons can kind of bounce around the lawn and everything when they're half out of air. But the moment you fill it up till there's no more way to put air in it, even a blade of grass will pop it, right? We are living in the last months before the final collapse. Now, I will give you some information about how that might happen and what the implications are. I'm only talking economy right now. I'm not even dealing with the spiritual issues. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But did you know that most Americans don't even know we're right near a collapse? In England and Europe, they're warning their citizens on national television to get ready for a massive reduction in the, what they call it, the level of living. They call it lifestyle, standard of living. Severe, radical reduction in the standard of living. That means get used to burning wood again. They're telling all the Europeans. And you know what? I have an article I can share with you if you want it. released by the same organization. For the second time in its history, they've released its second report to the public, because they're a closed institution. They only report to their members. But they produced a public report that says, 2 years ago, they said America has approximately 2.5 years continuing to print the money, unlimited supplies of money. In about 2.5 years, the U.S. dollar will totally collapse. It's now been 2.5 years, and they're forecasting September of this year, from September toward the end of the year, the total collapse of the real U.S. economy, which means every business, all banks closed, only the federal government will have a way to pay its bills because it prints money. Most state services will disappear because states depend on taxes. There will be no taxes. Now, what are the implications of that? Have you thought of what happens when there is no more economy? You say, David, aren't you being a little bit severe? Excuse me, I'm only reporting to you what I've observed. I didn't come up with this. Hundreds and thousands of people around the world that are economists are, especially outside the United States. One of the things that that article said, there is nobody in the United States that has the guts, nor the Republicans or the Democrats have the guts to tell the U.S. citizens what's about to happen. And the epicenter of this disaster will begin in North America. They're the ones that are going to suffer. It will begin in North America before it spreads out around to all the neighbors. Now, this is so severe. You say, isn't this an alarmist? Excuse me, with all my conscience and all my heart, no, it's not alarmist. I've been watching this since 1971. I've been teaching in business. And I can tell you that it's going to happen within this year or next year, or unless I'm praying and praying, God, give us 2 years. Please give us another 2 years. I don't know how he's going to do it. There's no evidence, humanly speaking, that the economy can last that long. If you just even listen to the news, even bother reading some reports, you can see that the cloth of the economy tearing apart. You can see through it already. Have you heard some? I mean, pumping $80 billion into the economy just to keep the banks open. That's a big tear in the rip. That's a rip in the cloth. And our structure, the economic structure of this nation is just tearing and tearing and tearing. And gas prices will continue to go, of course. They will go, as the value drops, they're having to pay for their oil in euros. Having Iraq over there is a very nice thing. There's two things good about Iraq from the point of view of the government. One is, as long as you're at war, you have emergency war powers. Number two, you have a source of fuel. You have control of a massive source of fuel. This is very strategic to a nation that's about ready to go under. You got to keep an air pipe, don't you, if you're going to be underwater? And so, the reason I'm sharing these things is because you have some choices to make. And most Americans... Yes, Richard?
I'd like to, with what you presented, what would happen to me if I was in debt? For any reason.
The whole rules of the economy are going to be rewritten. Being in debt, when this goes under, it's like the United States is solving their problem by going through bankruptcy. In other words, anything the United States owes, it doesn't owe it anymore. And we have laws in this country where bankruptcy, you can walk away from your debts, right? It's a terrible thing to carry around in your history where you declared bankruptcy. It destroys your credibility. But it does give you a new start. And there's some economists that are saying that when the United States crashes, the United States will walk away from its liabilities. Now, I know. And what that means is we don't know what the new laws are, but there's going to be a whole new set of laws regarding, because the entire nation is in debt. But there's a big chunk of the nation that won't be around very much longer. Because when there's no more food trucks going into Atlanta or New York, you're going to have a lot of dead people. And I guarantee you, the government's not going to allow them to go around the country ransacking people. They're going to do a New Orleans thing. There is evidence that the already National Public Radio announced that the U.S. President has sent out sealed orders to all military forces of what they're to do at the next crisis. We already know the orders are there. Nobody knows what they say. But we can have an idea what they say because military wives are talking. If you were a general and you knew what was about to happen, would you let your wife die in it? No. You would be allowed to tell her just enough to save her life. And what generals are telling their wives, and some of those wives are talking, is that the sealed orders are this. They have 2 hours to get out of the cities. After that, all cities will be sealed, nobody will come in, and nobody will go out. after that point. They're